Hi everyone, I just wanted to come on here to spread awareness. I just really have a sort of fire burning inside of me, not only for what's been done to me, but also what's happened to so many others from this family. That I just think it's really important to talk about these things and to spread awareness about predators and abusers, especially these individuals. I had a lot of people from my Facebook posts where I've been very vocal talking about this. A lot of girls reached out and told me that I should go to TikTok and share my story. That's where I'm going to start. I know people are also a lot more inclined to watch a video rather than to read the long paragraphs that I wrote. I guess I'll just start from the beginning. When I was in high school, I was friends with a girl, and at the time I was having problems at home, specifically with my stepdad at the time. One night, he was out cheating on my mom, and I woke up for school the next morning. He didn't come home that whole night. My mom's away on business, like, where's he at? So that's when I decided to call my mom. She got home from her trip that night, and there was a really big fight. Yeah, I was kicked out of the house. I was this pathological liar, this problem child who was just always creating all these problems, when in hindsight it was just me speaking out about what I overheard and what I saw. And yeah, I went through a really rough time. I was actually homeless for a lot of high school, and I went to multiple friends' houses, but particularly what I'm talking about is friends with this girl named Lexi. And I really cared for her. I liked her family. They were like those cool fun parents who would have the parties at the house with all the kids in high school drinking, which is actually also something else I want to talk about, how weird that was, that they were actively drinking with us teenagers and providing the alcohol and getting so drunk. Nicole specifically would get really drunk, but Paul would also drink. I don't know what pace to go with the story, but I'm just gonna talk about things as I remember them and the backstory as to how this happened, and obviously everything that has happened since, because it's been almost 10 years ago now. And I really want to talk specifically about Paula Nicole Atencio, and also bring some awareness to the school that she currently is the vice principal for. They moved to Tempe, Arizona. All of these events that I'm talking about, they happened in Farmington, New Mexico, where I'm from. And yeah, I do have a lot of resentment towards my stepdad. One, because it eventually did come out that he was cheating on my mom for their entire relationship years later. Actually, something I want to point out, the night my mom told me that she was leaving my stepdad, she didn't know anything about the cheating. She essentially just caught him in a lie, and it was enough for her to not trust him. My stepdad, he would travel a lot, and I just want to first say to my stepsisters, I am in no way, shape, or form trying to upset you by saying this whatsoever, but this was my experience and this is what I went through. I haven't talked to them in many years. I'm watching you girls, and I support and love you always, even if we don't talk anymore. But things weren't also easy for you back then, and I have no resentment or hate towards either of you, but I do have some feelings towards your dad, and he contributed to these experiences that I'm talking about, and I hope you're both doing good, and I'll just leave it at that. But he traveled a lot for work, specifically Albuquerque. His daughter's mom lived in Albuquerque, so he often would meet the mom to exchange his daughters. It was one of these times that he was away for work in Albuquerque. She just told me this story in the laundry room one night, and I knew there was more to the story, but I was just so thankful that we were getting away and getting out of there, because it was just hell every single day. There were days that he yelled in my face, he called me names, he was so disrespectful. When I walked in the room, the energy just shifted around him. He was creepy to my friends. When my friends would come over, he never ever wanted to give me money for school, for my lunch, for anything. But then when my friends would come over, he would buy everybody dinner, and he was the nicest guy. And it was just like super confusing for me, obviously, because there were days that he was not the worst guy, and I genuinely understand why all of our family and friends just didn't believe me when I was saying he was doing all of these things. And I heard things, a lot of things, I saw things, a lot of things, and I did bring them up to my mom. But again, he just always had the perfect excuse to explain everything. He was a narcissist, the biggest of narcissists there are, gaslighting, manipulating, the whole thing. Anyways, back to the whole reason why I'm making this video. But like I said, I just think the context of what I was going through and what this family knew I was going through, I was very verbally expressive to all my friends and my family. It was a very big thing that I went through for years of my childhood, of my teenage years and my adult years. I went to bed that night. I was really happy. I was really relieved. I wasn't happy in any sense back then. My mom woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and she told me that my dad was in the ICU in the Albuquerque hospital. My sister was on her way to get me, and then I needed to get in the shower, and we went to Albuquerque, and I was not expecting my dad to be in as bad of shape as he was. Medically in a coma. He had wires out of every single place, every single place. His whole face was swollen because he had actually died multiple times on his way to the hospital, and they had to revive him multiple times. So he was really swollen from that. He also had just went through surgery, which they were able to correct everything, but it was too late. My dad was declared brain dead and that they were going to run some more tests, but essentially he was never going to wake up and he was never going to be him again. Sorry, it's really hard to talk about. A few days later, we had to take him off life support, and it was really hard. And I never got to say goodbye, so that was really hard to watch. But the reason why I bring this up is because I think my dad helped me and helped my mom and my family expose my stepdad. He knew how unhappy I was and how awful my stepdad was. I was very vocal about it back then. And now I was planning to move to Albuquerque. That's where my dad lived with his amazing girlfriend. And I called him and I told him what was going on. And I asked him if there'd be a way that I could move to Albuquerque sooner, because we had a set date and everything. It was like a month, or I don't know, it was coming up pretty soon. And yeah, he was really excited. He told me about the room that he had set up for me, and it was a really good talk. My dad, I think he really helped because he exposed what my stepdad was doing. I really feel like he did have a role, and that he really was and is my guardian angel. After years of being called a pathological liar, a problem child, a manipulator, you name it, it was finally exposed that my stepdad not only had been cheating on my mom all of those times that I expressed it, talked about what I seen, what I experienced. There was a lot of things that I brought up and that I said, but it was finally exposed. Not only was that all true, but he actually had a whole family behind all of our backs. All those times he was in Albuquerque for work or taking his daughters or whatever. Even his daughter ended up telling me that they were taken to this woman's house, which was really hard for me to hear because they knew what I was saying was true, but they didn't speak up. And I understand that. They were young and they love their dad, of course. But it did really hurt that I was being labeled this liar and this problem child, and I was homeless, which is how all of this happened in the first place. There was even a time that my stepsister, she got an old phone from my stepdad. She found text messages between him and another woman. And when I confronted my mom and told her this, she asked my stepsister, and my stepsister said I was lying. So that really stung, and it really just continued to create this ideology that I was just this liar, just up to no good, just always trying to create problems. And my mom really did tell me multiple times that I was going to be the cause of their relationship to end, and she was hurt by it, and it hurt me too because I did want to see my mom happy, but my gut just knew that this guy was just not who he was saying he was. So yeah, it really hurt me when my stepsister did that to me, especially because after everything did come out, he moved that woman and her family into our house, our old house. There were multiple women. It wasn't just her. My dad, I feel like he really helped expose that because the way it just all came out was just crazy. It's still crazy. But that's how I ended up in this situation. When I went to a friend of mine, I stayed with her family. They came and picked me up and they offered me a safe place to stay. And I stayed there for it was a long time. I was never alone with Paul, only one time. And that's the time that I'm here to talk about. Like I've expressed, high school was really hard for me. I was bullied a lot, if you remember Ask FM, but not just on there. In person, a lot was through social media. It really wasn't a good time for me. Obviously, at home, at school, and I really trusted these people. I did tell them what I was going through. Obviously, they knew about my stepdad and about my situation, and Paul took that situation of me being this problem child and this liar and all of these things, and he took advantage of it, and he took advantage of me, and he took that situation and he multiplied it tenfold. He came home early from work one day and I heard somebody, so I got up to go see who it was, and it was Paul, and he told me that he had gotten home early from work and that Lexi was doing something after school, and he made sure to let me know that she wasn't going to be home for an hour or two. So I mean, we talked a little, but I went back into her room. I was working on an assignment for school on my school laptop. I was typing it, and this day in particular, I wore a dress to school. And I wholeheartedly believe that he knows that I left for school that day in a dress, and he purposely came home from work that day to do what he did to me. And he would have done more. I really, truly believe that. And the worst part is, if he had done more, then maybe I would have been able to do something legally, because I did try to, obviously I came out with it before this. And I did also report it to the police, which I will also talk about. But he came into his daughter's room while I was working on my homework assignment, and he started to talk to me. It was weird. It felt weird. No other way to describe it. I immediately was nervous and uncomfortable. He tried to scratch his back, moving his back over and over again, trying to get his. And this is when he asked me if I would scratch his back, to which I think I was silent for a good while because I really was just speechless. Just felt weird, like I keep saying, but I was really naive and I was young, and I genuinely thought maybe he really did need his back scratched. I had been around this family before I lived with them. He was creepy to me and to several other girls that I have went to high school with that went to these drunk parties or were friends with the daughter or whatever. Even girls who were friends with her in elementary school, middle school. Point being, I did say that I would scratch his back for him. I turned so that I could essentially step down from her bed. It was higher. Before I could even, after I had my legs to turn to get off the bed, before I could even do that, he had already, not that her closet was very far from her bed at all, but he came to me and he stood between my legs, which when you're in a dress, there's really nowhere that feels more uncomfortable. And it wasn't like he like got all the way in between my legs or anything, but my legs were slightly open because he made a point to stand in between them, like directly in front of me while he got his back scratched. And it lasted for a long time, if I'm honest. I would stop and he would tell me to keep itching his back, or he would say the other side. It just lasted way longer than a normal back scratch. And I think this was because he was trying to muster up the courage or figure out how to place his hand on my thigh, which he did. And he left it on my leg. He then asked me if I would give him a back massage. And I didn't say anything. I literally did not know what to say. I stuttered, like I was going to say something, and then I just went full on mute. He did say that he would give me a massage in return, almost like he was trying to be nice or just thought it was normal what he was doing, or in his head he thought it was normal. Let's just say that. But in my head it was very not normal. It was very uncomfortable, and he ended up moving his hand up my thigh and under my dress. He turned around because, like I said, I was scratching his back, and then he turned all the way around and he put his hand, he violated me. I was completely shocked and I was out of my body. I was frozen. My brain just stopped working. My voice stopped working. My body stopped working. I just sat there and I just endured it. I have words, but I don't have words. He was between my legs and he pressed himself against me and snapped me back into reality that he was going to lay me down and do more between my legs in my dress. And I finally reacted. My body, I finally had a thought, and it was, oh my God, he's going to try to rape me right now. He may actually try and rape me right now. And I finally responded to that, and I moved and I jumped up. I stood up fast and I said, I have to go to the bathroom. And I went into the bathroom. And I locked the door behind me. He came up to the door and was trying to talk to me. And I just remember I didn't want to talk to him ever again. I was just horrified. I was traumatized. I blocked him out. I didn't answer him. I didn't open the door. I was scared to open the door. I did not want to go anywhere near him ever again. Once he realized I wasn't coming out, he did tell me multiple times not to say anything. He flat out said that if I said something, that his wife would have us both, we would both be out on the streets. Which just put me in an uncomfortable position, as if I wasn't already in one, but just really scared me. I didn't want to say anything. One, because I just knew it was going to be really, really bad if I did. But also, this girl was my friend, and I did like this family. It just put me in a really uncomfortable position of not wanting to cause any problems for anyone, specifically my friend. So that night or evening, they all went out to the son's wrestling thing, and they tried to get me to go. And I know for a fact they know that there was a amount of time that we were alone together, Paul and I. And I also know that they remember this specific night and how I was acting, because they tried to get me to go to this wrestling thing. And I really didn't want to go. I didn't want to be around this guy. I was just trying to figure out what the hell just happened and what to do. I texted my mom, which she eventually sent these text messages to Nicole, by the way, shortly after it all happened. But I know it was super weird to them that I didn't go to this wrestling thing and that I just stayed there at their house. And I know that he knows, most importantly, how upset I was and just how out of the norm I was acting. And like I said, I did text my mom, and it was really upsetting because my mom, she didn't initially believe me until Paul was creepy to her, as she put it, a dog. And she tells me now that she knows that I was telling the truth, but it was also really hard to tell someone and not be believed. I don't want to trash my mom at all because I actually really love my mom and I would not change who my mom is, like, ever. But at the time, it really did hurt when I first told somebody, and I wasn't believed until she experienced herself the kind of sicko that he is. So that was really hard. And it made me definitely scared to tell his wife and his daughter. And I had a really bad night. I didn't sleep. I really laid there all night until the next morning. Yeah, it was really like a terrifying thing. And I don't blame my mom. She has since apologized to me, specifically after everything came out with my stepdad. She did apologize to me for not believing me about that. And of course, she eventually did believe me about this. But again, after she experienced it herself, back to the story. I didn't go to school the next morning. Like I said, I just laid there all night. I listened to them get ready for school. Nicole was actually a teacher at the time. She wasn't a principal yet. And I don't want to get emotional because I really want to just remain strong and keep my composure. Specifically talking about this, I know they're going to eventually see these, and I just don't want them to have the satisfaction of watching me break down, but I have many times and picked myself up every single time, and I will always pick myself up. But Nicole even came into Lexi's room and asked why I wasn't going to school. And Lexi asked me, and I just said that I wasn't feeling good. I just made up some excuse because I couldn't go to school. I couldn't just pretend it didn't. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I went into Paul and Nicole's bathroom and I took these first set of pills, prescription labeled pills, and I tried to unalive myself. It seemed like the fastest and the least painful way to do it. And I genuinely did not want to be alive anymore. Like I said, there was a lot going on, and I couldn't go back home, but I didn't want to stay here either. I laid up all night, just terrified and scared that he was going to come into her room. And I also had a fear that because I didn't say anything that night to his wife and daughter, that he could potentially try again because he knew I wasn't going to say anything. He also was inappropriate in the way he would look at me after it all happened. When I looked back at how he acted around me, when I looked back to those times and I caught him looking at me like a dog. He looked at other girls this way. Lexi's friends, that's why I have a really hard time believing that they don't know that he's a pedophile. To not only me, but to other girls, which I have shared, or they have shared. I haven't, obviously, for privacy reasons, posted or talked about all of the other girls. And then, of course, I've had conversations through Snapchat or even on the phone that it's more of like a word of mouth if I was even to talk about it. But it's not my story. It's not my story to tell. This is my story to tell, and this is what I'm going to focus on. But I will bring up other victims of Nicole while she was a teacher and a principal. I am also prepared for anything. I have actually already gotten files together with dates and witnesses, names, people who can attest to all of. Again, sorry to jump all over the place with this. It just, again, so much happened, and talking about one thing reminds me of another thing. It's all just really connected, how it all went down, the context behind it, it matters. It matters to me, and it is helping me to talk about these experiences. I want to use my experiences to help others, other girls that have been in this situation, other victims of this family, and even girls who can relate, who have been through something very traumatic and very life-altering, and how it affected you, especially when you are made to be silent, which I will get into how I was silenced and just continued to endure abuse from not only this man, but from his wife when I did speak out against this heinous thing. But I really want to use my voice to advocate for the others who are too scared to speak up. And I understand that feeling. I understand how scary it is. And I also understand how scary it is to speak out against this family in particular. You're seeing what's happening to me. You haven't experienced or seen what's happened behind the scenes for several years until I came out and exposed all of this. And every day since, and every day, even today, is really hard for me to talk about this, to relive this, especially in the eyes of the public. Mom, after I took the pills, because I wanted someone to know why I was doing what I was doing. And part of me didn't want to face what was going to come out of it. And I just genuinely didn't even care, didn't even consider really my family and the friends I still had outside of Lexi in that situation. I really felt like there was no other choice for me. I really didn't want to go back home, and I really couldn't stay here. I was terrified he was going to do something to me again, and I was very uncomfortable for obvious reasons. My family called an ambulance, to which they essentially broke into the Atencio house and found me and took me to the emergency room, which was a entire experience. Which I mentioned in one of my posts that the doctor actually asked me if I had experienced any hallucinations, because she said the pills that I took were antipsychotics, which they had Paul Atencio's name on them. So he quite literally is psychotic. I was in the hospital for a little over a week. I went home with my mom, and things didn't get better at home again because of my stepdad. I was really angry and I had outbursts, and I very strongly voiced my opinion. Just like when I was kicked out, there was a big fight and he told me that he paid the bills, and because of that, I needed to respect him under his roof, or I wasn't welcome under his roof. And I flat out told him I didn't respect him, and I always told him that how I felt. I've always been this way my whole life. I've always been labeled trouble or a problem because I call people out on a shit and I say it how it is, and it's always affected my life negatively. But that's who I am, and that's who I'll always be, and that's exactly what I'm doing here today. Speak out back then, and I was called a liar. I was told this well-respected man of the community would never do this, but he did. He did. And I don't know what I ever did to deserve literally any of it. I feel like I'm just a nice person. I don't make other people hurt. Rightfully, I do stick up for myself when I need to. I call people out on the shit and I stick up for myself. And I've never done anything even remotely close to any of this. It's actually made me a very empathetic and understanding individual. It really has shaped me in a lot of ways. But even back then, I feel like I was really empathetic and just an emotional kid, and people picked on me for it or knew how to make me feel bad because of it. And to those people, I just want to say, I see where you are in life, and I'm really glad that I didn't grow up like you. My mom, she's amazing. She is such an advocate for what's right in the world. She is just a very empathetic and good person. She really is. We all have our days and we all do things that we regret, but my mom has apologized to me for those things, and I do understand where she was coming from. She was being manipulated by my stepdad for a lot of years, and she just couldn't see it at the time. But like I said, I really believe my dad exposed that and was looking out for me in that sense, because he knew he wasn't going to be there for me anymore, and he just wanted to make sure that I was going to be taken care of. And he exposed my stepdad for what he was and opened my mom's eyes, and I will be forever grateful, because this man had me crazy thinking that I was imagining these things. He was that manipulative and narcissistic. And Paul's the same way. He's just manipulating everyone. I can't comprehend the fact that Nicole knows that this man is a serial cheater. He's been cheating on her for over 20 years. I have heard from multiple people. I even know of women that he has had affairs with. And that's all I'm going to say, because I really don't want to name anyone's name or any of that. I really don't. And as far as my story, I'm not going to name anyone's names. Like I said, I have started a list with witnesses and people who can confirm what I'm saying here in case I need to protect myself. So I do have a list, and those of you who know me, I may not have even talked to a lot of you in a long time, but I know you remember. You lived it with me. You experienced it with me. And let's just say these people cannot deny or lie about the truth. When people have witnessed these things that I'm talking about, when people were there, you cannot deny it. You can't. When I did speak out about this, like I said, I was called a liar by his wife and his daughter. They tracked my mom's phone number and they started harassing my mom, my number obviously, and I want to say I wasn't responding or I wasn't interacting. And that's why they tracked my mom's number down. And after that happened, I started to react and respond back to them. And then they just basically harassed me and my mom and just flat out kept calling me a liar. And describing Paul as this well-respected man in the community, and just made sure to let me know that no one would believe me if I did speak out publicly about it. So that obviously made me not want to tell anyone. So that didn't make me feel very good, that my supposed friend and this woman who I just never, obviously I was scared of the reaction that I was going to get, but it was just way worse than I thought it was going to be. And this was like right after this all happened. Not right after, but it was within the same time frame. It wasn't years later or anything like that. Essentially, when I got back from the hospital and everything happened, my older sister, she went to the Atencio house to gather all of my things, in which they told her how weird it was that I stayed at their house while they weren't there, which, if you remember that, the reason why I didn't go with you and I stayed in your house by myself was because I didn't want to be around your husband after he molested me. But anyways, they just told my sister they were so heartbroken and so sad that I tried to kill myself. There was like this whole discussion had, which my sister, told me after, and she brought all my stuff, and, it just made me feel really like bad that they were calling me weird for being at their house by myself, which obviously imagine how weird I felt. Like, you think I wanted to do that? No, I didn't. But anyways, my ex-friend, Lexi, like, I don't even consider her ever my friend. She was texting me, just telling me how much she missed me. She called me her sister. We obviously were really close during that time, but I heard things after that she said about me to other people, and she just was really never my friend. And anyone who's been friends with her, which I've had so many of her ex-friends reach out to me, how awful and how two-faced and what a backstabber she is. Maybe I'll eventually make more posts about Lexi, but as of right now, I just want to focus more on her parents. And maybe eventually I'll be a little more vocal about her son and his inappropriate behavior towards me and towards other girls. I had a really good friend of mine. She actually really encouraged me to go to the police with this. And she took me to the police station to try to report what happened to me. We went to Farmington Police Department. They have this area connected to the police department where you can go and report crimes. And that's where we went. And I didn't even sit down in a room and have an actual interview with an officer. Obviously, I did talk to an officer, and I was basically told, because he molested me, that there wasn't really much they could do. And they insinuated if he had raped me, like if I had let him rape me, if I just stayed in my freeze, how my nervous system was processing that trauma, if I had just not woken up from that or fled to safety in that bathroom, that maybe they would have done something about it. And this is the worst part, is I have been raped, and I went through the entire process, and he was not charged with anything, and he went on to assault more girls after that. It was an ex-boyfriend of mine, which maybe I'll like briefly touch on that, but I don't want to turn this into that story by any means. I want to focus on what I'm trying to say here, but it does tie into this experience because I have tried to rely on the justice system, and I'm not going to blame the officers or the detectives by any means. I'm going to blame the justice system itself. There is so many rapes and children who are molested. Basically, why I do bring that up is because I do know the difference from me reporting that crime to me trying to report this crime. And I really don't even remember. I don't think there was a report taken. I really think the officer just didn't really take me seriously, because I went in there with my friend and I was really upset. And I just really don't think that they took me seriously. But the reason why I bring it up, and I bring this other experience of me trying to report a sex crime, a lot of these predator guys have been charged with rape since high school, and how they just hung around each other and obviously thought this behavior was okay. But it's not. It's really not. I just fucking hate that guy, and he still tries to message me and add me every time I make a new social media account, because I blocked him on the last one. And it's just the audacity to ever try to speak to me again. Like, I don't know what you've said and done and to others. And yeah. And my mom called the police after it happened. I handed over bloody underwear. I gave a statement to the cop that responded. They called me in, and I gave another statement with another police officer. And I have nothing bad to say about those cops or the detective who eventually took over, where I had to answer multiple more questions, telling me that there were other reports. He spoke with the school resource officer, and the school resource officer had a lot to say about him and other girls who had reported behavior. Eventually, he hired a lawyer. The detective asked me to meet him, and I went with my sister, and he told me that the DA wasn't going to be able to pursue this, and he just was really upset, as was I. He just wanted this guy to go down. Obviously, really upsetting, especially because the detective, even when he found these other reports and whatnot, we really both thought that we were gonna get him. But unfortunately, that's just not how the justice system works. It's a literal war anytime you try to hold a predator or an abuser accountable, and it's really messed up. But the reason why I'm talking about this is I went through all of this when I was raped, and they weren't able to do anything. So when I was told that they would have, just because it's really hard to prove being molested, that if I had essentially been raped, that maybe, and I know that even then it still probably would have went unpunished, really made me feel powerless. But that's not even where it, yes, bad, but that's not even where it gets bad, because I went on to be bullied and harassed by the man who did this to me. I'm talking about Paul again. If you want to hear any more about that other experience, I'm an open book about everything, like literally everything that I've been through. I use it as my strength now because I overcame that and sexualized my whole life to this day. Even after coming out with all of this, like my DMs, my messages, they're disgusting. They're disgusting. I have to block guys. Just no respect for the divine feminine that exists. Like, we are really just seen as sexual objects to be looked at and to be preyed on and to be touched and whatever the hell else they decide they want to do. And there's something that seriously needs to be done about. I have plenty of stories, and I'm very open to talk about them and to warn other young girls who may be in a similar situation where they just aren't really sure of what the red flags are to look out for, or who are just scared to advocate for themselves or to speak up, because I don't want any of these things to happen to our new generations to come. If I had any children of my own, I can't even imagine how hard that would be, seeing how Nicole and Paul have targeted and treated these children if I had my own. So let's get into that. I was harassed and I was bullied for several years when I still lived in Farmington, New Mexico. I moved to Colorado a few years ago, and I still have to now worry, even being an hour and a half away from Farmington, about continuing to be bullied and harassed by the Atencio family and all of their supporters. I have even seen some of them out and about since then, ones that have commented on their posts, and it's really disheartening to now feel like I cannot be out in public again without worrying. I essentially stopped really going to school during all of this. My mom really wanted me to get my GED, and I really considered it, but I did find a way to finish high school. I literally showed up on graduation day and everybody thought I had dropped out. Nobody really talked to me anymore or really knew what was going on. And I did see the Atencios every now and again after high school, and it really didn't get bad until when I messaged Nicole one day, which I posted the screenshot of that confrontation. I don't even know how many times I just didn't go to school, missed school. A lot of our stuff was done through our school laptops, so that's how I was able to still maintain my grades. And there was a lot of times that my mom thought I was at school, but I wasn't. There were even times where I would just wake up like I was gonna go to school, and then when everyone would leave, I would go back home, and I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to run into the Atencio family, the son and the daughter. I just really did the best I could during that time, but it was really hard, and I felt really isolated. And I have went on to go to college, so I am really proud of myself for finishing school and how strong I was. The time, it was miserable and it felt like literal hell on earth, but I'm really proud of myself for picking myself up and that I kept going, even though I wanted to die like so bad. But I'm really proud of myself for everything I've accomplished today and the woman that I am and what I stand for. Again, it didn't get really bad until in 2018, so 6 years ago, I actually posted the conversation between Nicole and I when I confronted her after I found out from my ex-boyfriend's parents, who I really don't want to mention any of them out of respect, but they were also in the school district, and that's actually Nicole where she said these things about me. We dated for 5 years. When I found out, after I had really gotten to know this family and to really care for them, when I found out, we were on his parents' houseboat at the time, and we were all drinking and having a good time. And when I found this out, I messaged Nicole on Facebook because I was just really angry, and I wanted to tell her that if she wanted to tell people to watch out for me and to speak poorly about me, to try to influence my ex's parents to not like me and to not want me to be with their son, that she needed to tell her husband to stop coming into my work and staring at me while I was working and making me uncomfortable. So once Paul found out where I worked, he started coming in regularly during my shifts, and he would sit at the bar and he would just watch me. The bar was like in the very middle of the restaurant, so anytime I walked out of the side, he had a clear view of me. And not only would he watch me then, but he would also watch me when I would walk throughout the restaurant. I hated when I would have to go to the bar and get a drink because he would just make me so uncomfortable. And he did this for a while, and I even asked my manager if I could switch my shifts to morning just to avoid him, because he would typically come in, I'm assuming it was when he was off of work. I messaged Nicole this. If I figure out how to make a TikTok with pictures, I will post the screenshot, the conversation. I ended up finding it recently when I went through all my old Facebook messages on my old account, mostly because I was just trying to find any proof to prove that this happened, because they're continuing to paint me out to be a liar. Like it's all just some crazy scheme that I'm making up when it's not. But basically, I tell her that in the message about telling my ex-boyfriend's parents that, and to tell her husband to stay away from me if she's going around telling people to watch out for me. And she replied, LOL. To which I replied, I'm not surprised by your immature response. I wouldn't know what to say if my husband liked teenage girls either. Which in hindsight, of course, it got worse after that, because I really shouldn't have confronted her. But like I said, I was angry and I was drunk, and I really was just appalled that she was going around saying this while her husband was like actively coming in and sexually harassing me. So I did confront her, and it just got really bad after that. I went into work, so that was like during the weekend. I went into work, like the very next shift I went into, I was called in the office by my manager, to which I was told all of these insane, crazy things that Nicole had called my work saying. And I was obviously angry as hell, and I was very embarrassed to have to talk about any of it, which obviously I didn't tell him all of the details, but I did tell him that her husband was coming in and watching me at work. I think she's trying to get me fired because she doesn't want her husband to come in and look at me anymore. And that's the only possible explanation for why she's doing all of this, to which he was on my side, and he told me to let him know if there was anything that he could do. The really uncomfortable part about it was they were really well known at this restaurant bar, Applebee's, and they knew, the manager knew the guy who they were saying all of this to. They're even Facebook friends with him, because obviously I looked at their profiles because I had a lot of mutual friends with them when I did come out and say this, which shout out to the ones who deleted them. The ones who didn't, I don't even know, because I think I deleted most of you. But so yeah, after that, she made a point to come in on Saturdays or the weekends when I was there in the daytime to harass and bully me. They would laugh at me. They would make comments when I would be within their vicinity because I was doing my jobs. Obviously, I had to go to the bar sometimes, or I was like out and about throughout the restaurant. And sorry if I keep playing with my hair and touching my face and all of it. I just use my hands a lot, especially when I'm just talking, which I've been sitting here for a while talking. But yeah, she certainly made a point to come in with him after that and to make me feel stupid and small and like I was nothing and was never going to be anything. And it really broke me down when I would be at work and I would have to deal with this because I couldn't stick up for myself. I couldn't react because I was there doing my job. And also, it seemed like that's what they wanted me to do. And I knew that they were trying to do something, trying to get me fired, because Nicole was very upset when I was not fired. I found out. I really tried not to react, even though my blood was always boiling. And I so badly just wanted to tell them both off every single time they came into my work and did this. It happened so many times that my ex-boyfriend would come to my work and sit there just to make sure that they wouldn't do anything and to intimidate them right back, because he was friends with the family. Obviously his parents were friends with them. He was friends with them along with most of the people that I grew up around and I grew up with. They were a very well-known family. Their kids were popular, which don't even get me started about those damn kids right now because I'll jump into a whole nother segment. But essentially, it opened him up to enduring what I endured, because once he publicly supported me and stood by me, because obviously I told him this along with a lot of other experiences I had traumatically, and he believed me right away. And then he got to experience it himself. So once he stood up to them, they didn't like that, and it ended up becoming almost like they would do things on purpose to upset us when we would see them out and about in public, at restaurants, just anywhere in the general public when I would be in the same room as them. There was just always this drama, and they used every single ounce of energy they had to make our lives miserable, to make me feel miserable, to make me feel bad. It was just really disgusting what they did. And he would go out without me and run into them, and altercations would happen. I even remember him telling me, I think like after we had broken up, about Paul and him almost getting into a fight. And I'm sure he still and has forever dealt with those individuals simply because he dated me and he stood up to them, because I couldn't do it for myself at that time. I just really just cower like a scared dog, because they were just really that intimidating and that horrible. And they knew exactly what they were doing, and they wanted me to feel the way they made me feel, because they didn't want me to speak out about this. They were that terrified that I was going to come out one day and expose them. And here I am today, finally doing it. They ran my name through the mud to so many people over the years, and I know it was because they knew the second I came out and said all of this that everyone was going to believe it. And that was the most horrible, scary thing to the both of them. Especially Paul. I think that's where it all stemmed from. Nicole's awful though. She's literally bullied children. There's so many students that have spoken out both publicly and privately to me, and she totally uses her power as a principal to get away with it, and also to target certain children. I've heard from so many parents of what she did to their children, and it just seemed like the school was very well aware of the problem, and she just kept getting away with it and away with it and away with it. And that's why I decided to take my posts the next level and start making videos and TikToks to spread some awareness about her current school that she works for. She was expected to be fired after all of this came out, but from my understanding, she was able to get a lawyer. The district, higher ups, everyone within this school district in Tempe was confidently telling other people that she was not going to return. And then she got to, and I'm under the impression from some of the people from Tempe within the school district that have reached out to me personally and told me about her 25 HR complaints she's already had, all the parents who have reached out to me and told me them bullying their 11-year-old daughter, just like the most awful, heartbreaking things, along with my story. And I sent in over 187, I literally counted them, screenshots, and I didn't even send everything I had because I wanted to respect the privacy of some of the girls regarding Paul, as well as Lexi, what she did to some of her friends when she was a young girl. She played games under the covers, which involved touching and kissing and just being inappropriate with other young girls. And I did send almost everything I had on Nicole, but I did leave out some of the more sensitive messages regarding Paul, because I wanted to center it more towards Nicole, because I know you can't really fire somebody because their husband's like this creepy pedophile, but I did send in a lot of messages just showing that Nicole has been abusing her power and bullying children and bullying adults. And she even went on Facebook and had this whole smear campaign threatening to fight this parent, which again, I'm not really going to talk about their stories, because if they give me permission to, I will 100% tell everyone your story. I won't say your name. I won't give out any details, but I do think it's important, especially for the Tempe, Arizona community, to know who these people are and have been for so many years to so many of us in Farmington, New Mexico, and Kirtland, and all the places that Nicole taught, was a principal at. I just think it's super important, really. I'm going to get into the school. I don't want to jump from me talking about what happened all these years ago to what's happening now. I don't really know which way to go with the story, and hopefully, again, you're still here and you're still listening, because I know it's a lot. And it's just imagine what it's been like for me, because talking about this, it's not even, I can't even put into words what it was like experiencing it. It was really bad. I did leave that job, the restaurant job. I started working at the mall in Farmington, and it seemed like once Paul found out where I worked, he would make a point to show up there at random times. He would just walk by. He wouldn't say anything, but he would just stare at me with the disgusting look on his face. It always reminded me of how he was smiling while he was violating me. He really enjoyed himself when he did that, and he's so proud of himself for what he did to me and what he got away with. And it's the most disgusting thing to be stared at sexually. I would hide sometimes from him, but sometimes he would be walking by and I would be working and I couldn't always hide. I would have to tell my family or my close friends anytime I would have an interaction with them. And I really did want to yell, "You're a fucking pig, fuck you," all of the things that I was feeling, but I was really scared of him. Even if I saw him today, I really don't know how I would react, because every time I see him and when he's with her, I just freeze up and I just feel like my brain stops working, my body stops working. Like I feel like how I did back then. And that's because he brought that out in me, and he probably forever will bring that out in me, because my body remembers. Anytime I'm near him, it's like I'm back there. And the fact that they would come into my work and just re-traumatize me over and over again like that, it's crazy. So this lasted for several years of my life. One particular instance that will forever stick with me is when Nicole spit in my face. One night I was in Durango with my best friend, and we ran into some people that we knew, and I was hanging out with this guy that I knew from high school. He also was in the crowd with everybody, just like we all were. Everybody knew the Atencio family. They were friends with, the parents and the kids. And I was in the bathroom, and I came out of the bathroom, and he told me that Nicole approached him and told him to watch out for me and smear campaigned me, like literally always. And he told me what she said, and I was really upset, and I told him what happened. I mean, the short version. And he was like disgusted and was like, "I'm so sorry that happened to you." And I look up, and Nicole is literally just giving me the biggest go to hell look, looking if looks could kill, right? And she just followed me around wherever I went and did this and made me uncomfortable, like she always did, because anytime she saw me, she wanted me to leave, because if I was there and there was a chance that I was talking about them and telling people about what they did to me. And that's what they tried to do. This night we were at the garage in Durango, and I was trying to go to the dance floor with my best friend, and Nicole followed me. And she started saying some pretty disrespectful stuff to me. She was drunk. It was very clear she was drunk. And she was very mad that I was there. And she was also really mad that her son and his friends came up to me and were trying to talk to me. And she did not like that, like at all. But she followed me, and she was being really rude. And like I said, I typically tried to ignore it, but mostly it happened when I was working and I wasn't really able to react. But also I was just fed up at this point, because it had happened so many times to me, and there's so much that you can fucking take before you just fucking snap. And I snapped, and I turned around and we went back and forth, and I told her, I said, I would be embarrassed if my husband liked young girls too. And she spit in my face. She literally spit on me. Which I don't know how the hell I didn't go rampage on her fucking face, because do that to me today. Like seriously, do that to me today. But I'm really glad actually that I was pulled away and attempted to still have a good time with my friend after this. But it was really fucking disrespectful. Nobody should ever be spit on in their life, ever. I don't know if you have some sort of fucking disease or something. Don't ever think that is okay. And especially just because your husband violated me and you're mad at me for it instead of being mad at him. Paul followed me and my best friend, and he sat down right where we were dancing. And he was watching the two of us dance with the most satisfied, perverted fucking look on his face. And I just couldn't stand to let him get off on me or my friend anymore. I was so disgusted that I couldn't even stay there anymore. And they had another successful night of ruining my night and making me feel like shit about myself. All of those negative things that you feel when somebody is upset with you. Someone is upset with you because they did you wrong. But I really stopped wanting to even go out in public for a long time because I was just always terrified it was going to be another night ruined. I was going to cry myself to sleep again that night. It happened so many times, and it really scared me, and it made me quit jobs and not feel safe working anywhere in Farmington. I did move to Colorado a few years ago, and luckily I have not ran into them, although they do have a really big family in the area that I live. So that was scary, is scary, because obviously their family and friends feel a certain way about me. They think I'm like evil and just this horrible, malicious person who's just doing all of this because I literally have nothing better to do, when I have receipts and I have witnesses. But they've all essentially made all of their profiles. If you try to look them up, you can't, but they do have their profiles still there. But when you try to go on their page, literally everything is locked off. Like, you can't do anything, you can't see anything. They literally all hid underground like the cockroaches that they are. And I just think that really speaks volumes about them as people, but also about the situation, because I'm defending my name now, obviously after years and years of having my name dragged through the mud and feeling how I do and not really being able to move forward in life. They took away my voice, they took away my self-love, they took away my self-respect. They really broke me down for a very long time, and it's taken me many years to build myself back up and to feel empowered enough to make them understand how it feels to be treated this way and have your name run through the mud. The only difference is I'm telling the truth. Putting myself out there to be judged, to be called a liar, to be talked about, it's really not for the fucking faint-hearted, what I'm doing and what so many others have done and what so many others are scared to do. And I totally understand being scared and the hesitancy in wanting to speak out. I mean, look at how they're treated. Like, look at what's happening to me. I mean, like I was saying, it really just does speak volumes to them as people, because they know it's true and they're not even trying to defend themselves, because they know I have receipts and they know I have witnesses, and they know everything that everyone else is saying about them and everything that's come to light is all true. And they know all of the people who haven't said anything, and they're not gonna egg it on and let them come out and tell their story. It would really just continue to keep making them look bad, because the more and more people that hear about this, the more and more messages I receive on a daily basis. Literally on a daily basis, I am still receiving messages of people who are even saying, I really wanted to message you this sooner, but I just am not as brave as you, or whatever the case may be. They know, God knows what they have done to me and to so many others, and there is no hiding from that. When you know you've done people wrong, I would definitely be defending my name if any of these allegations were untrue. Nicole did make a post while I was in Europe. Her family was quite literally stalking my Instagram stories on my page, which I stalked them back, and that's how I realized it was their family members. So while I was on vacation, they all were discussing me and what I was doing, and she must have figured, let's just make her vacation horrible and make her not even be able to enjoy herself, because she went on Facebook and she posted this weak ass Facebook post trying to say it was troubling. Like, she keeps calling me trouble. She always calls me trouble. She tells everybody I'm trouble. But basically it was like this weak ass little paragraph of, thank you for our family and friends for your support. We recognize these malicious and untrue allegations. But then, like, right after they posted that, they went underground so that nobody could see their profiles or could interact with that post. Anyway, it was the most pathetic excuse of a response. And there hasn't been anything since then, and maybe they'll be stupid enough to say something after these videos, but I would just recommend staying hidden like the cockroaches that you are, because I'm literally prepared to go to war. Not just because you took my self-respect and I'm taking it back, but because you quite literally do not deserve a day of peace in your miserable, godforsaken lives. And just know that God is witnessing this all. And those of you who are supporting any of this, even after you've seen all these other victims come out, God is also witnessing that. And Jesus loves me and is carrying me through, has been carrying me through. And all I can really continue to say is Judgment Day will not look good. And I wholeheartedly believe that even if they don't pay for any of this and no justice is served, they will have to answer for this one day. And they have a long list of things that they will essentially have to answer for. And they deserve all of the karma that is coming to them and will continue to come to them. And what's really the worst part about it all is they don't feel any guilt or remorse for what they've done to me and all of the others who have spoken out both publicly and privately, and they never will. They have been forever bullies and abusers, and they forever will be. They're not doing anything to make up for the wrongs that they've done to people. They're not even taking any sort of accountability or apologizing for any of it. And even with the school, she knew that she was going to be fired. And instead of just accepting that Nobody wants her there. The teachers don't want her there. The coaches don't want her there. The faculty members don't want her there. The parents don't want her there. The students don't want her there. They've all told me. Somebody have reached out to me and told me how just upset they all are, how they have all verbally expressed her unprofessionalism, her laziness, how she's disrespectful. Parents have reached out to me about reports they've made to the school for her bullying children. It's just really crazy to me that she just thinks this behavior is okay. And even when she knew all the rumors going around that she was going to be fired, everyone was confidently within the district saying she's not coming back. Tears were shed. It was a whole thing. And then at the very last minute, why would you want to stay where nobody respects you, nobody cares for you? I mean, granted, you might have a few people manipulated, obviously more than a few if you have people supporting you and your pedophile husband, but you can't hide, and people see through that, and people know who you really are. Even before I came and said all of this, you already had ruined your own reputation. I didn't even need to do anything. This was just, as they put it, the final nail in the coffin as far as they're concerned, because it's disgusting. And it's really disgusting that you would fight so you can continue to bully and abuse children because you get off on it. But just because we're able to legally stay there, as so many have put it to me, doesn't mean that you're going to stay, and doesn't mean that your contract is going to be renewed, because who on God's earth would want that around their children? And not only that, but people have reached out to me that didn't even work with her in a school setting and just described how she brings the toxic work environment wherever she goes. She bullies everyone. She acts like she's better than everyone. And she has made it her life's mission to make children feel as bad as she feels on the inside. That's the only logical explanation, the most logical explanation for why she continues to do this. And now you basically cannot go under the radar anymore. And that's what I know you thrive on. People see right through that facade. Maybe not everybody, but until they experience it themselves, and they will, it's not going to last forever, babe. That being said, you're also supporting and protecting a known creep pedophile. He cheats on you. While I was even staying in your house, you would argue about him cheating on you, and he would sleep on the couch, which also reminds me of you all telling me not to open the door because they're there trying to get their furniture back because you didn't pay. And you did that to a lot of people, didn't you? You can go and see, you know, how many times they've been sued by people. Even the most recent place they were renting out, I don't want to, let's just say that there's a reason why they moved to Tempe and they still have not paid that back, and they've been sued many times before that. They try to get out of paying for everything because they are awful and they don't care who it affects or who they screw over or who they owe money to or how many things they've done. To ask somebody to help you out because you don't want your family to freeze, and then to block the person who helps you out with that just to avoid paying them back, is not only morally wrong, but it's just flat out disgusting. And I get maybe struggling financially, but that's not what this is. This is them just being fucking losers and taking advantage of good, honest people to help them, and doing everything and anything to avoid paying them back or even saying a thank you. It's really unsettling, actually, to just get away with it and over again and have the audacity to tell me that he's a respectable man in the community. What about all the, what's the word? Reports of his sexual harassment to his female coworkers, the way he literally just prowls on so many women and young girls, and even girls that Nicole brought around him being a vice principal. It's just really unsettling and alarming, and someone needs to say something because it's going to keep happening until somebody does something. You are only so good at manipulating and escaping accountability for so long, but this many times. So I did speak while I was on vacation. I was just so distraught at that post and just all of it. So I really just couldn't be present in the moment, and they found a way to run that for me as well. Not really, because they didn't run anything, but they certainly tried, and they certainly tried to distract me from enjoying myself. I did send the school a message. I sent a few screenshots of messages, and I sent a bunch of the comments on my Facebook posts and some of the things that people wrote when they shared my posts. I think there was over 400 shares, and there's been multiple posts. I went on a rampage with the posts, so that's why I'm gonna just resort to a video. Again, I just feel like people, I hope anyways, will watch a video more than they will read a bunch of paragraphs of me literally losing my mind in so much anger. But I'm really hoping we get more shares than I got on Facebook. Let's get this up there. Let's bring awareness to everyone and anyone that's ever known these people, anyone that will ever know these people. A lot of these parents and people from the school have reached out to me, but there's probably a lot who are also still in the dark about all of this. If I was a parent and I knew any of this about somebody who's in a position of power over my children, I would definitely be outraged that she was just being shoehorned in as if it is, which a lot of the teachers and coaches and faculty members and spouses and parents and students are all really upset But when there's legal contracts involved and you have a lawyer fighting any sort of dismissal or disciplinary action, especially when, although these events are very true, as well as what happened at the other schools that Nicole worked for, the way it was just explained to me is it's really hard to fire somebody in that high of a position of power. And unfortunately, they just didn't have the type of ammunition that it would have taken, especially when you have legally binded contracts. But the way it's been explained to me is she's most likely on another form of contract where she has to behave and act a certain way. Otherwise, it is grounds for termination. And I wholeheartedly believe that she will mess that all up on her own because she has a very poor work ethic and she's a bully and she thrives on it. And eventually her real self will come out again. She might be able to hide who she really is for a while, but she won't be able to hide herself forever. And now people know what to look out for and they know the type of person she is and how far she will take things. That being said, I have had parents and people of that community reach out to me, and it's really inspired me to make these posts. I really think that if we put some pressure on the district, that they will have no other obligation but to protect our children, because the two of these people should never ever be around children ever again, especially under the guise of a respectable school administrator who's bringing. Other girls were brought around Paul through Nicole because it's very common for teachers to hang out with other people that they work around, and that's what happened to this poor girl that was only in 7th grade. This girl was jumping on the trampoline with her younger sister, and Paul was observing her breasts, enjoying himself watching her jump. He made her very uncomfortable, and he even offered her money to continue to keep jumping so he could continue to sexualize her and get off on watching this 13-year-old girl's breasts as she was jumping on a trampoline like many children do. And she was a principal, and this girl's dad was friends with her, and that's what she had to endure because of who her principal was and who she brought around. And I just can't live with myself knowing that could ever happen to another young girl. What does that say about him and about her? She's clearly not stupid, but she definitely turns the other way to this known cheater, this known liar, this known predator, abuser. So I want to put some pressure on the school, leaving reviews, calling, getting more parents in the Tempe, Arizona area looped into what's going on. I even spoke with the school. So like I said, I did send them over 187 screenshots along with several messages. I did send them a lot of supporting evidence showing a pattern of abuse, unprofessionalism, working with children. And they reached out to me and they asked me for my contact info, which I gave them. And I got a call. They set up a call with somebody from the district superintendent office, which meant it reached the highest level that it could reach. And I had a conversation with a gentleman. He was actually really sensitive to what I was saying. He interrupted me to apologize for what I went through while I was talking. I really just wanted to answer any questions they had. I felt like I had sent in enough supporting evidence, and clearly it was, because they weren't planning on bringing her back, but likely intimidate them, which you may be able again to keep your job now, but only time will tell. And it really was encouraging when I was reached out to by somebody well within this community, specifically the school. She told me that it was all not for nothing. At the time, when I found that she was still there, I had a parent immediately message me. She told me she was looking right at her, and I had a whole breakdown. I was really upset, and I did message the school again, and I started to send them just everything else that I had because I was just not okay with what they were doing. But I did block them because I didn't want to come off as just being a problem or crazy, and also because somebody well within the community and the school system that knows kind of how things work, she told me not to waste my energy with them and to reach out more to the parents and create a network system, because parents do have a voice. If you have upset parents and you have kids that are coming out and saying the same thing, which parents have told me about her bullying their children and trying to get this one young 11-year-old suspended for something that she didn't do. If you've messaged me anything about them and you want me to, again, block your name out or make that public to just bring more awareness to those parents and to even the Farmington community, I think it's really empowering to do. Even if you're not comfortable sharing your name, it still does feel good to just get your story out there and to hold them accountable, because they do most likely read these comments and all of my posts, and they know what they did. And the fact that a lot of these kids and parents and just people in general have been traumatized by this family and remember it in such vivid detail to this day, it's really sad. And it's really sad that so many were silenced and so many were called a liar. So please help me bring awareness to these very disturbed individuals who deserve to have this all put on blast, and who deserve to feel fear and nervous like they have made me and so many others feel before. If you don't want somebody to do something to you, then you really shouldn't have done it first, in my opinion. Don't do something that you wouldn't want done to you. That's what my mom always taught me from a very young age. You get more with honey versus vinegar. There's really no need to be so evil and mean and malicious. There's really nothing that you gain from it whatsoever. They're all mentally ill. The name of the school is Fees College Preparatory Middle School. It's located in Tempe, Arizona. I have made several posts about it on my Facebook page. Again, if I could figure out how to add pictures, I will include it here. Please reach out to me if you have any suggestions or if there's anything else that you would like me to discuss, or if there's any suggestions on how I can better get my story and all the other story out there. Please reshare, and thank you so much to every single person who has messaged me, who has commented, who has called me, who has texted me, who has shown their support and just general consideration for me as a human being. You have very much given me the strength and power to fight back for me, for the others, and for any other girl, man, boy, woman, anyone who has experienced what me and countless others have. Just know that it's never too late to speak up. It doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago. It doesn't matter if it was 50 years ago. They did not deserve to take your voice, and it is not their right. They had no right to do what they did to you, and they had no right to treat you how they did for speaking out and for standing up against them. And I am so overwhelmed with just all of the love and the good out there in this world, despite the bad. Hence the family that I am talking about here. They're the worst of the worst, and they've been hiding their true, real selves from so many for so long. But there's so many out there who have seen the real them and who know deep down who these people are, and the good is always gonna overcome the bad. The truth will always come to light, and you just have to trust and believe that there are others out there who will believe you, who will support you. You did not deserve what happened to you, but it does not define you. You deserve a voice, and you deserve to live a beautiful and an amazing life. And the reason why I'm crying even just saying this is because I have to remind myself this all the time, because it is an everyday struggle, and you're told for so long to just move on and forget what happened to you and to move past it. But the truth is you never do, and you're never the same person that you were before these things happened to you. But there are better days, and there's so much strength in talking about it and admitting it to not only yourself, but to those people who don't know, who don't know who these real people are. And I encourage everyone to be more kind to people, because you really don't know what people are going through every single day. And it takes a lot sometimes just to get out of bed in the morning and to go out and to work and to stay when you don't want to. It really has been hard for me to stay strong and to keep fighting, because yes, the reaction from so many is positive and good, but there's also those ones that watch these videos and read my posts and just have no compassion or no understanding, or I can't even put themselves in mine or any of the other shoes. And I myself, I'm guilty of that. There were, of course, things that happened in middle school and high school where people came out and they told their stories, and I was skeptical along with others. And I just want to say, until you've lived through something yourself, try and go into it with a human compassion for another human who is struggling and who's brave enough to speak out against something this horrible, to warn others, and to just be a little bit more compassionate towards others, and understand that terrible things do happen from even the most unexpected people, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. And before you go into it with that mindset, just try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, because we're all human. Some are better and some are worse than others, but at the end of the day, we're all human. No one would open themselves up to any of this for no reason. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask for Paul to do this to me, and I definitely didn't ask for his family to treat me this way and to make me feel silent for so long of my life. And I definitely didn't ask to feel the way I do talking about it and bringing it all to light only to continue to be called a liar and to have my name dragged through the mud.